Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Militanjena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Guruve Gaura Chandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Vaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Pravajantam Manapeta Apeta Krityam Rapayano Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putreti Tan Maitaya Taravo Binedus Tam Sarvabhutam Hridayam Munimanatosmi Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Bhaktya Vihina Parada Lakshai Kiptastakamari Tarangamadye Kripa Mai Tvam Sharanam Prapanna Vrinde Namaste Charanada Vindam Tave Vasmi Najivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayanam Charanandike Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So, we're going to continue hearing the beautiful Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, and we begin by offering our most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of our beloved Gurus, unto Sri Guru Pada Padma Nitya Leela Bhavishta Om Vishnu Pada Sto Tatsat Sri Simad Abhaya Charanaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Jai. And unto Sri Guru Pada Padma Nitya Leela Bhavishta Om Vishnu Pada Sto Tatsat Sri Simad Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, under our exalted Rupanuga Guru Varga and all the Sambhu Vaishnavas Vaishnavis. So, yesterday we were hearing Mahaprabhu speak about the method of attaining unalloyed devotional service. Right? He was instructing his devotees. There had been a pastime that had been mentioned where an atheistic person had made some disparaging remarks about the holy name, how the glories of the holy name were exaggerated in the Vedas just in order to get people to do it. Mahaprabhu took a bath with all his clothes on and then wanted to show how the path that this person was following was not conducive to generally understanding the Vedas or the conclusion of the Vedas, right? And he quotes himself, actually, which I find really, really interesting. First, he stated directly, by following the paths of speculative philosophical knowledge, fruit of activity, or mystic yoga to control the senses, one cannot satisfy Krishna, the Supreme Lord. Unalloyed devotional service for Krishna is the only cause for the Lord's satisfaction. And when you hear this verse, and then the next one, and realize that all this was also spoken to Rupa Goswami in great detail, you see this anya bilashita shunyam jnana karmadyanavritam anukulyena krishnanushilanam bhaktir uttama. This verse, this most high description of what pure bhakti is. And this jnana, karma, and all the other things, jnana, karma, yanadi, adi, all these speculative philosophical knowledge is jnana, fruit of activity is karma, mystic yoga, adi, all these other things that we practice. Unless there's anukulyena krishnanushilanam, right, fully devoted with body, mind, soul, and deeply felt sentiments of love, activity performed without any break, always for the benefit, satisfaction of Krishna. Without this, anukulyena krishnanushilanam, then everything else is useless. what confuses people is that in Bhagavad Gita and other scriptures there are descriptions of using this jnana yoga, karma yoga, and elements of bhakti are included within them, right? And so they think that, oh, all these systems are the same. But they're not the same because they don't have the same practice, they don't have the same goal, right? So he's going to then quote himself as Krishna. I find that very interesting. Mahaprabhu now is in the mood of a devotee, but he's going to quote himself from the Srimad Bhagavatam, which was recorded by his literary incarnation, Vedavyas, and then passed down through disciplic succession. Srimad Bhagavatam put into writing and then passed down. Madhvacharya heard from Vedavyas, and then from him the more modern representation of our sampradaya, right? So he quotes this: Na sadhayati mam jogo, na sankyam dharma udava, na swadhyayas tapastyago jata bhaktir mamorjita. Krishna said, this is 11th canto, the Uddhav Gita, my dear Uddhav, neither through Ashtanga Yoga, nor through impersonal monism, or an analytical study of the absolute truth, nor through study of the Vedas, nor through austerities, charity, or acceptance of sannyas, can one satisfy me as much as by developing unalloyed devotional service unto me. And that whole Uddhav Gita really defines this unalloyed devotional service. In Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna is speaking to Arjuna, he's speaking in summary. And he says, Bhaktyamam abhijananti, right? Yavan yaschasmi tatvataha. That only by unalloyed bhakti, but it's not really described in detail and separated from the other systems. It is in condensed form, but Uddhav Gita, all these chapters, clearly and in detail describes what that is. So now, having heard those, now we go to the next part. Murari ke kahe tumi Krishna vasya kaila, shuniya murari shloka kahite lagila. Lord Chaitanya then praised Murari Gupta, saying, you have satisfied Lord Krishna. Hearing this, Murari Gupta quoted a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is from the 81st chapter of 10th canto, spoken by Sudama Vipra. Okay. Kvaham daridra papiyan, kva Krishna Sriniketana, Brahma bandurita smaham, bahubhyam parirambita. Since I am but a poor, sinful Brahma bandhu, not Brahmanically qualified, although born in a Brahmana family, and you, Lord Krishna, are the shelter of the goddess of fortune. It is simply wonderful, my dear Krishna, my dear Lord Krishna, that you have embraced me with your arms. Sriniketana, the shelter of the goddess of fortune. This Sriniketana is also quoted in Gopi Gita and emphasized, this shelter of Shri, goddess of fortune. But of course, Shri, in the highest sense, who is the goddess of fortune? Radhika herself, in the original and most complete form. So, this, Srila Prabhupada says, this and the previous verse quoted from Srimad Bhagavatam clearly indicate that although Krishna is so great that it is not possible for anyone to satisfy him, he exhibits his greatness by being personally satisfied even with one who is unqualified from so many angles of vision. Right, I heard Srila Prabhupada say the other day, what can you offer Krishna? He is the source, the owner, the creator of everything. Any offering we have is less than a child The child is given money by the parents and buys a birthday gift for one of them, right? What is the parent accepting? The money that was used to buy it was theirs, but the child did it, carefully chose it, did it out of love, right? And that's what they're enjoying. That's what they're accepting, this genuine, simple offering. So Sudama Vipra, Srila Prabhupada said, he was born in a family of Brahmanas, learned scholar. He was in the school of Sandipani Muni with Krishna, yet he was very humble and considered himself unfit, calls himself a Brahma Bandhu. Means you're born in the family, but you're not really don't have the qualification. But Krishna, when Sudama Vipra came, they had not seen each other since those school days, right? When they were both very young. They were both like 11 or 12, right? And then Krishna had gone, he'd gone and lived in Mathura, so many pastimes there. Then after many years, fighting many demons, Jarasandha, finally moved to Dwarka. And then when he was in Dwarka, his old friend visited him, right? And Krishna received him so respectfully and worshipped him like one would worship a brahmana. Even though he was so poor, he just had ragged clothes. He wanted to bring something to Krishna, but he didn't have anything but some old dried up chipped rice, which is not fit for anyone hardly to eat. Even mice will probably hardly go for that. But he was beloved devotee of the Lord, and Krishna was so happy to see him. They had a childhood pastime together when they both went out to gather firewood for Sandipani Muni, and while they were out, giant storm came and flooded the whole forest, and they had to take shelter at the root of a tree, a high root of a tree, and the floodwaters were very high, and they just put the wood on their heads, right, to keep it off the ground, and they stayed there all night under this tree. And in the morning, their guru was looking for them, and he saw them. They didn't throw the wood down and run back. They were ordered to bring wood for the wife of the guru so she could cook. And they kept that wood dry by keeping it above the ground. They held to that order. And he was so pleased by that simple devotion. And he gave them both blessings. That complete understanding would come to their hearts. And of course, Krishna learned all the 64 arts in 64 days. Each art would take an ordinary person 10, 12 years to begin to understand and complete it. Krishna and Balaram understood each art completely in a day. Right? Actually, they're the source of all that. Vedaisya savayardaham eva vedyo. Vedanta krid veda videva chaham. Krishna, I'm the source of all of this. So Mahaprabhu, he was chanting and quoting himself. Now Murari Gupta is quoting this beautiful pastime. And he says that Krishna bestowed special mercy upon Murari Gupta. He couldn't even be called a Brahma Bandhu because he was born in a Vaidya family and therefore considered a Shudra. Vaidyas means doctor. At one point, Brahmanas were also doctors, but they had different castes, right? Even in the Brahminical society. And if one Vaidyas would take service, like he was a court physician, so therefore, because he's in the service or employ of the king, he's considered like a Shudra. They considered even Ramananda Roy to be a Shudra, right? This great personality. He's actually Kayastha, mixed Brahmin and Kshatriya, but he was the governor under the direction of Maharaj Prataparudra, so the South Indian Brahmins considered him a Shudra. Right? So Murari Gupta was very humble, though. He didn't care for any of that. He was so qualified, and he was so deeply immersed in love of God. Many stories about him. And he says that the purport of this statement by Murari Gupta, he quotes Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that No qualification in the material world can satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. No degrees, no amount of wealth, no post or position in society. This has no relationship to satisfying Krishna. If one's intelligent and fortunate, one may employ all of their gifts and attributes and talents in the service of the Lord. But just like in Jaiva Dharma, when Vijay Kumar, great devotee, very learned in Srimad Bhagavatam, came to visit his nephew, Brajanath. As far as he knew, up to that point, Brajanath had not yet become a devotee. He was only interested in scholarship, nyaya, argument, logic, and all of that. He'd never shown any interest. He was just like a smarta brahmana, right? And so he was a little cautious, but when he found out that Brajanath had now become a Vaishnava, he was very happy. And he said, "Oh, Brajanath, you are so learned in so many branches of the scripture. And, you're born in a very high-class Brahmin family. And you're not without wealth. You're like zamindars. You have so much property and things. Now all of these things are ornaments to your bhakti because you're engaging everything fully in the service of the Lord. Before that, all of that was useless, right? So now it's bhakti. And in the beginning, before we're completely pure, there is that stage, Sangha Siddha Bhakti, where you take all these things and you employ them. These natural qualities of the Brahman, the compassion, the generosity, simplicity, detachment, right? Renunciation, knowledge. When they begin to become employed in the service of Krishna, they take on the qualities of bhakti according to the degree of surrender, right? And then those activities become aropa siddha bhakti. They have a similarity to bhakti. But what we're striving for and what Mahaprabhu wanted to really distinguish was pure bhakti, where there's no mixture of any other motive, any other interest at all. Because externally, you could see two people doing the same thing, being externally very similar in every way. Like the parents and uncle of Raghunath Das. They were devotees to some extent. They supported brahmanas, they supported devotees, they worshiped Mahaprabhu, but they had attachments. And Mahaprabhu called them Vaishnav Prai, which is sort of like the beginning of Kanishta. Even though they did so much service to the Vaishnavas and employed their wealth so favorably, their hearts were not completely purified. And that could be seen by their inability to let go of their son, Raghunath Das, when he wanted to join Mahaprabhu. They made so many obstacles. So then Prabhupada says, the members of the Krishna Conscious Society cannot even call themselves Brahma Bandhu. In other words, we're lower than somebody born in a Brahmin family but doesn't have the full qualification. We're not even that. Therefore, our only means for satisfying Krishna is to pursue the injunctions of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who says, it's his statement, Srila Prabhupada quoted this one over and over, Yare deka tare kaha Krishna Upadesh. Right, Krishna Upadesh, instructions of Krishna. Amara agyaya guru hana tara edesh. Whomever you meet, instruct him on the teachings of Krishna. In this way, on my order, become a spiritual master and deliver the people of this country. So Srila Prabhupada, people are wrestling with this whole idea of who can be a guru, who cannot be a guru. And, Srila Prabhupada had this famous statement, I think it's in a letter, where he's saying he was hoping that by 1975, all of his disciples would become qualified as Bhaktivedantas and gurus, right? So Bhaktivedanta was an idea that he had to, by study of scripture progressively, when you become expert and knowledgeable, of Ishopanishad, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, teachings of Lord Chaitanya, nectar of devotion. When you have that all down according to a certain standard, then you could become a Bhaktivedanta. And by that, he thought that people would be qualified to teach even to educated people. Right? And so they can all be guru. And sometimes this is meant to say, that everyone, he wanted all his disciples to be initiators. But no, not necessarily, not at all. Because there are many kinds of guru. And one kind of guru is one who gives shiksha, instruction. And that could be general and broad instruction, or if you have a Mahabhagavat shiksha guru, and you are qualified, they may be giving you instruction about cultivation of your siddha deha. You may have arrived at a very high stage of bhakti. And that's a very special kind of shiksha guru, like in Jivadharma, where they got instruction from first Raghunath Das Babaji and then Gopal Guru in the details of perfecting their bhakti and their prem. Right? So the other kind is and you can be a shiksha guru or a Vartma Pradarshika guru, one who shows the way. All his disciples could do that, and all of his disciples did do that, even in the earliest stages. That's also guru. Right? But of course he wanted everyone to become as qualified as possible. But not everyone's going to become a Diksha guru. He exclaims in Upadesha Amrita, Nectar of Instruction, that one may be a Diksha guru on the Kanishta level or Madhyam level, but it's understood that those disciples, they have to be on the same level, and they can't make very much advancement under their, he didn't use the word inadequate, something like that, that not complete capability, right? They're not fully realized, so they can only give so much. You can only give what you've got. So the warning, you don't want to become guru when you're Kanishta. Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj said that Kanishta, they can't digest the responsibilities of guru, taking on this sin of the disciple, right, to purify them. Have they chanted pure holy name? Can they give the seed of the holy name? They can give what they have. A Kanishta can give some level of faith. Certainly they have some faith, but how mature is it? When one comes to Madhyam, then one certainly has Nishta, and in Madhyam, one has Ruchi. One is actually chanting Shuddhanam. And that person, he said, that's where the qualification begins. He said Madhyam should be at least Madhyam, chanting Shuddhanam. Or, even better, Asakti, Madhyam Uttam, where deep attachment to Krishna and awakening of a realization of your inclinations towards service of Krishna and very specific Brajbasis. That comes in very mature Asakti. Again, you see that in Jivadharma. Right? So become a guru, but that means just preach. Anyone who preaches is fulfilling the order of Mahaprabhu. However you preach, by your example, if you're an external preacher, handing out books, chanting in the streets, all of that, whatever capacity. So, one day, Ek Dina Prabhu Sabha Bhakta Gana Lanya Sankirtana Kori Vaise Shama Yukta Hana. One day the Lord performed Sankirtan with all his devotees, and when they were greatly fatigued, they all sat down. The Lord then sowed a mango seed in the yard, and immediately the seed fructified into a tree and began to grow. Wouldn't that be a sight, huh? That would be really cool. As people looked on, the tree became fully grown with fruits that fully ripened. Thus, everyone was struck with wonder, of course. And the Lord immediately picked about 200 fruits. And after washing them, he offered them to Krishna to eat. The fruits were all red and yellow, with no seed inside and no skin outside. And eating one fruit would immediately fill a man's belly. Srila Prabhupada says, in India, a mango is considered best when it is red and yellow. Yes. The Alphonse mango, considered the king of mangoes in India. In South India, they have so many of them.
So Mahaprabhu threw a seed and they did that?
Yeah.
In front of who? Who was he?
What?
Who was he with?
It just says he's with a group of his devotees. They were doing sankirtan. It could have been his students, could have been his intimate associates. He may have stopped school by this time, but his students became his followers. And so I've always wondered about that. And he says, its seed is very small, its skin is very thin, and it is so palatable that if a person eats one fruit, he will be satisfied. The mango is considered the king of all fruits. Yes. Yeah. So, no skin means no big, thick skin. You got to have something to keep it from oozing all over you, right? But I know that when you have a really super excellent mango, that skin is so nice. In India, they have a really nice way. I learned this in the 70s, how they would eat that kind of mango. Of course, sometimes they would cut it in little pieces and open it up like that. But another way is you just take it and start squishing it when it's really ripe. Carefully squish it everywhere until it's completely pulpy and juicy underneath the skin. No firmness at all. Then you bite off the top where the stem is, spit that out, and then just squeeze the juice into your mouth. Very wonderful way to eat that kind of mango. Very satisfying. So, seeing the quality of the mangoes, the Lord was greatly satisfied. And thus, after eating first, he fed all the other devotees. The fruits had no seeds or skins. They were full of nectarian juice and were so sweet that a man would be satisfied by eating only one. Right? So that verse, Srila Prabhupada was citing that verse in his purport. In this way, fruits grew on the tree every day throughout the 12 months of the year, and the Vaishnavas used to eat them to the Lord's great satisfaction. There was a tree outside of Srivas Pandit's house which would give champak flowers every day, fresh, throughout the season, and devotees would come, and in the morning they would come, the intimate devotees, and pick some there for their puja. These are kalpavriksha trees, right? This is the holy dham. These are the eternal associates of Mahaprabhu. So he could manifest like that. This is prakat dham. Sometimes it's aprakat. You can't see the transcendental nature of Mahaprabhu and his pastimes and what's going on. And now it's prakat. And so he's growing this special tree. I wonder how long it took. Just a few minutes. And they just, all of a sudden, like one of those, movies, those cams where they record over the course of a season a plant, and it comes out, does the whole thing. To us, it just takes place in a minute or two, but it would have taken, maybe 6 months. So the Lord is the master of time, so he can do whatever he likes. These are confidential pastimes of the son of Shachi. Other than devotees, no one knows of this incident. Right? This place is called Amragat or Amagata. Okay. The festival of eating mangoes. Okay, so in this way, the Lord performed sankirtan every day. And at the end of sankirtan, there was a mango eating festival every day for 12 months. So Mahaprabhu has two kinds of lila, just as Krishna did, naimiktik and nitya. Naimiktik lila is specialty lila that only takes place in this world. It doesn't take place in Goloka Vrindavan, like his birth, like his boyhood pastimes, things like that. The nitya lila, the naimiktik lila, or nitya lila, no, naimiktik is temporary, nitya lila are those activities that take place in the dham during prakat, but also take place in transcendental Goloka Vrindavan, Shvetadvip. And the Sankirtan pastimes are Nitya Lila, right? So, and he has Ashta Kaliya Lila, Mahaprabhu himself, also just as Krishna does. But we don't hear so much detail about that as we do with Krishna. So, Srila Prabhupada says, on principle, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would distribute prasadam at the end of kirtan performances. Similarly, the members of the Krishna consciousness movement must distribute some prasadam to the audience after performing kirtan. I don't know if that's in the temple or what, but I do know there were different times when we would take large amounts of sweets out. Sweet balls, burfi, different kinds of things made, and distribute them to the public at large. And they appreciate it very much. Once, while Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was performing kirtan, clouds assembled in the sky, and the Lord, by his own will, immediately stopped them from pouring rain. Srila Prabhupada gives a description that Bhaktivinoda Thakur gave, that once, when Lord Chaitanya was performing Sankirtan, a short way from the village, some clouds appeared overhead. By the supreme will of the Lord, the clouds were asked to disperse, and they did. Because of this incident, that place is still known as Megharachara. Since the course of the Ganga has now changed, the village of the name Belapukuria, which was formerly situated in a different place called Tarnapavasa, has now become known as Megharachara. The Madhyakanda of Srila Lochandas Thakur's Chaitanya Mangala also relates that once at the end of the day, when evening clouds assembled overhead and thundered threateningly, all the Vaishnavas were very much afraid. But the Lord took his kartals in his hands and personally began chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, looking up toward the sky as if to direct the demigods in the higher planets. Thus, all the assembled clouds dispersed, and as the sky became clear with the moon rising, the Lord began dancing very happily with his jubilant and satisfied devotees. I heard another story from one of my godbrothers who was living at Hyderabad. Hyderabad is in Andhra Pradesh. It's central, it's still considered South India, the beginning of South India. And it's on the Deccan Plain. It can be very hot there and often dry. And one summer, there had been prolonged drought. Drought had been going on for a long time, and the farmers were just suffering. And Srila Prabhupada was there in Hyderabad, and he talked about that, and he was taking a walk. And he looked out over the fields, because it was very rural area still at that time. And he saw all the dryness and the plants withering, and he could understand the suffering and financial disaster also. And when farmers are too pressed, sometimes they just give up their lives, like if it's just too much burden. They've got loans out for this and that, and they can't support their family. So there was great distress all over Andhra and that area. And then Srila Prabhupada was talking about that. And then the devotee said he just raised his hand. And all of a sudden, clear blue sky, hadn't been a cloud in the sky for weeks, months, right? All of a sudden, dark clouds began to form everywhere, right? Huge, dark rain clouds. And all of a sudden, it began to rain and pour and nourish the land again. So, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that Mahaprabhu was talking to the demigods hey, we don't want the rain. So Srila Prabhupada was talking to the demigods, we need rain. Our farmers, need the rain. And, these farmers, they were engaged also in some seva, Srila Prabhupada's temple and all like that. And he had compassion. Devotees are naturally soft-hearted. And so the demigods, they're, by ordinary estimation, they're very great. But when they see someone of the caliber of Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, right, any of the people, any of the great acharyas in our line, they worship their feet. Narada Muni used to come and visit Srila Prabhupada. I've heard stories on at least 2 occasions where he was coming to visit and witness. Once during Rath Yatra, once during an assembly program. There are other stories devotees have told of Srila Prabhupada. They walk in and this one devotee I know told me he was serving Srila Prabhupada. Where was it? Somewhere in Asia. Anyway, he walked in and Srila Prabhupada was having a conversation, animate conversation, speaking very strongly and then stopping as if listening, and then speaking again. And the devotee was stunned. 23, 24-year-old guy walking into Srila Prabhupada's room, seeing this. We didn't know anything about bhakti, anything about anything. And he's seeing this, he doesn't know. But he, very smart. So he could understand he's talking to somebody. But he just was. And then Srila Prabhupada turned and saw him, and then it all stopped. Right? So. One day, the Lord ordered Srivas Thakur to read the Brihat Sahasra Nama, 1,000 names of Lord Vishnu, for he wanted to hear them at that time. As he read the 1,000 names of the Lord, in due course, the holy name of Lord Narasimha appeared. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard the holy name of Lord Narasimha, he became fully absorbed in thought. Now, Srila Prabhupada quotes Chaitanya Mangala, Madhyakanda, describes this incident as follows. Srivas Pandit was performing the Shraddha ceremony for his father, and as customary, he was hearing the 1,000 names of Lord Vishnu. At that time, Gaurahari appeared on the scene, and he also began to hear the 1,000 names of Vishnu with full satisfaction. When he thus heard the holy name of Lord Narasimha, Lord Chaitanya became absorbed in thought, and he became angry like Lord Narasimha, like Narasimha Prabhu in his angry mood. His eyes became red. His bodily hairs stood on end. All the parts of his body trembled, and he made a thundering sound. All of a sudden, he took up a club, and people became greatly afraid, thinking, we do not know what kind of offense we have now committed. But then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu adjusted his thoughts and sat down on his seat. Narasimha aveshe Prabhu hatte gadalanya Pashandi Mariteyaya Nagare Daya. In the mood of Lord Narasimha Dev, Lord Chaitanya ran through the city streets, club in hand, ready to kill all the atheists. Seeing him appearing very fierce in the ecstasy of Lord Narasimha, people ran from the street and fled here and there, afraid of his anger. Seeing the people so afraid, the Lord came to his external senses, and thus returned to the house of Srivas Thakur and threw away the club. The Lord became morose and said to Srivas Thakur, when I adopted the mood of Lord Narasimha Dev, people were greatly afraid. Therefore I stopped, since causing fear among people is an offense. Srivas Thakur replied, anyone who takes your holy name vanquishes 10 million of his offenses immediately. There was no offense in your appearing as Narasimha Dev. Rather, any man who saw you in that mood was immediately liberated from the bondage of material existence. After saying this, Srivas Thakur worshipped the Lord, who was then greatly satisfied and returned to his own home. All right, so we'll stop at that point and continue more tomorrow. Right. See, that's one of the specialities of Mahaprabhu. Of course, being the original personality of Godhead, he carries all of the incarnations within him. But in his pastimes, he would experience the devotional sentiments towards these different incarnations as well. In the presence of the devotees of those incarnations, he would show himself to them as that form, as that Ishtadev, that worshipable Lord. That's what happened during the Mahaprakash, the Sata Prahariya time, the 21 hours, when he showed himself and glorified all the devotees. He showed himself in so many forms. And sometimes he experienced that mood as the Lord, and sometimes he would experience the mood of the devotee of that Lord. When we were in Puri in 2004 with Srila Narayan Maharaj, he was doing Rai Ramananda Samvad. And in the beginning of that, Mahaprabhu is visiting the temple of Lord Narasimha, and he's chanting this very beautiful verse in glorification of Lord Narasimha. What is it? Jaya Jaya Pralada Desha Jaya Padma Mukha Branga. It's that one we chant. I know exactly where it is. Here we go. Oh yeah, Jaya Narasimha, Jaya Narasimha, Jaya Jaya Narasimha, Pralada Desha Jaya Padma Mukha Padma Bringa. Right? That's the fifth verse of that Roy Ramananda Samvad. All glories to Sri Nrsingadev, all glories to the Lord of Sri Prahlad, who is like a honeybee, always hovering about the lotus-like face of Sri Lakshmi and Devi. And, Srila Narayan Maharaj explained that there he was tasting those moods of Prahlad. He tastes all the moods. Primarily, he's tasting the mood of the gopis and most significantly Srimati Radhika, but he was tasting all of the moods. And Mahaprabhu also. Therefore, his pastimes are so expansive and so varied, right? And by those pastimes, it gives people of any inclination of service, any form of devotion to any of the incarnations, they can all find deliverance and fulfillment in this age by the chanting of Hare Krishna, by the sankirtana chanting. Their own special mood of devotion will be awakened. It's not meant just for devotees of Sri Krishna or devotees of Sri Ram. It's open to everyone, all the devotees. So, we'll stop there and offer obeisance to Srila Prabhupada, who has so kindly given us this magnificent literature and commentaries by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Srila Gurudev, all glories to the assembled devotees.